So after 14 rounds, you have all of these conflicting strategies and confusing moves going on without the hint of a developing game plan or cohesive structure. What was Scott Watters doing? He got one of the 18 most prestigious coaching positions in the country and he's qualified to the tilt. He can't be this stupid, man. At this point, it's worth looking at the magnitude of the job in front of him and breaking it down into steps. What did Scott Watters have to do as coach of the St Kilda Football Club in his first 2 seasons? In no particular order, he was responsible for gracefully and gradually exiting the past St Kilda champions of the 2009 to 2011 era, playing the youngsters to determine who was and wasn't part of the future, experiment to fill some major structural holes, turn the list over without stripping it of all of its experience and leadership, and finally, get new talent to the club. These objectives really highlighted exactly how undesirable Scott Watters' position was at the club. In a nutshell, the ideal outcome was to play the right kids, not disrespect the veterans, and competitively lose games whilst bringing the best young talent through the door. So when considering these factors, one thing seemingly stood out, and that is the reason no clear structure or signs of a developing game plan were evident was because the club didn't have the cattle to work towards the vision it wanted. The St Kilda Football Club was not yet rebuilding, it was still tearing down the foundations of the existing structure. So all of this experimentation and ambiguity, TDL and Sard playing despite consistently poor form, persevering with Stanley down back, playing a plethora of running half-back flankers and so forth, was simply to identify what the club wanted to keep and what the club needed. Pump games into TDL, see if he gets better, that type of thing. From that viewpoint, despite some inconsistencies, maybe what we'd been seeing actually did make sense. Scott Watters may have been taking a longer term view for the club than we realised. This seemed good, this seemed correct. And this view was further enhanced during the trade period when the club brought in a variety of players that were all seemingly talented, young, and more importantly, filled holes in the list that were identified over the long season, whilst a few veterans left and a few stayed on. Finally, all looked right. The sudden dismissal of Scott Watters was largely a shock for the wider football community, especially on the back of surviving the infamous review of the football department and the successful trade period that portrayed the Saints as a well-oiled machine. When you consider the buzz around Mark Williams, the premiership coach of a poor team that had previously worked with Pelchin, before the sudden appointment of Mr. Allen I'm not interested Richardson, you really have to wonder about the alleged process. Factor in the timing, with everything occurring shortly after a seemingly successful trade period of which Pelchin was rumoured to captain the ship, and the conspiracy theories write themselves. We'll probably never know what exactly happened, or more importantly when particular decisions were made and by whom. Me personally, I considered all of the things that I'd seen from Coach Watters and weighed them against the job in front of him before drawing the conclusion that he really was thinking rebuild and long term. From that view, it was hard to argue that he wasn't doing a good job. Maybe I was wrong though. Maybe all the erratic selections and the inconsistent game plan and structure really was every bit as part of the chaos of Scott Watters as we have been led to believe since his departure. Hiring assistant coaches on a whim, playing an unfit and poorly performing Sard out of nowhere against Brisbane late in the season, and a seeming civil war with the senior players, in particular Sam Fisher. And let's not forget the much rumoured power battle between he and Chris Pelchin. We were told that after the review of the football department that Scott Watters survived by the skin of his teeth and that terms were set. I wonder if maybe they weren't. Maybe he didn't survive this review and the club didn't want to jeopardise the trade period by going into it under turmoil. Maybe the process for a new coach started well before any of us realised, and that the finer details had been arranged well before the search even seemingly begun. As previously stated, what actually happened will probably not ever come out in its entirety. However, having watched a seemingly brilliant draft and based on the information available, it seems to me that the Saints have a plan and are united in their endeavour to achieve it. Please feel free to leave any questions, comments, suggestions, or otherwise corrections, and thanks for watching. It's the Winter Soldier here, signing off.